The afternoon session of the public interview for candidates for the position of Associate Justice of the Supreme Court is now open.
Your Honors, this is a continuation of the public panel interview of candidates for the position of Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, Vice the Honorable Francis Jardeleza and the Honorable Antonio T. Carpio. The candidates for interview this afternoon are the following: Presiding Justice Amparo CABOTAJE-TANG. Please rise, ma'am. Thank you. Justice Efren de la CRUZ, Justice Alex QUIROZ.
Please administer the oath.
Your Honors, can you raise your right hand so that I can administer the oath? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this public panel interview by the Judicial and Bar Council? So help you God. You may now be seated.
The first interviewer will be Judge De Monteverde.
Thank you, Justice Mendoza. Justice CABOTAJE-TANG, you're the presiding justice of the Sandiganbayan.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. Yes, Your Honor.
Now, sometime in March, you had a chest X-ray taken.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what was the result?
It was okay, Your Honor.
There was a finding.
Yes, but according to my doctor, Dr. Chavez, that there is nothing to be alarmed about with respect to the result of the said test, Your Honors.
Why?
Well, that is what he told me, Your Honor, and being my doctor, I just have to trust what he tells me.
The result here says that for the chest X-ray, findings in the right upper chest are of concern for minimal infiltrates.
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, I think I had a follow-up test regarding that, and the explanation is that because I had a previous ailment with my lungs, it could be attributed to the scarring of the lungs, Your Honor.
Lungs. So what do you think would be the greatest reform? What was the greatest reform that you have done at the Sandiganbayan during your appointment as its presiding justice?
Your Honor, the reforms or reform that has been made in the Sandiganbayan cannot be attributed solely to me, but it's the collective efforts of everybody, particularly with respect to the time cases get decided. In the past, Your Honors, there was this complaint about the delay in the resolution or the resolution of cases before us, but over the years, this period has substantially declined, and especially with the implementation of the judicial affidavit rule and the revised guidelines on continuous trial, the period of deciding cases is steadily declining, Your Honors.
Now, it was in the news that you will no longer handle charges concerning the Mama Sapano massacre against former President Aquino III, who appointed you in 2013 the Sandiganbayan. Is that correct?
Your Honors, that case was assigned actually to the 4th Division of the Sandiganbayan, which is chaired by my colleague here, Justice Alex QUIROZ. And to my, from what I know, since the case is not actually assigned to my division, from what I know is the Office of the Ombudsman filed a motion to dismiss the cases filed against him on the ground that there is no evidence to substantiate the charge against him, which is a usurpation of official functions. But I think
but
there
is
is
the news correct that you will no longer handle
no,
charges concerning
I
the
did-
Mama Sapano?
I did not give any statement to that effect, Your Honors.
You did not.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Anyway, that being said, how do you maintain independence in handling cases when all eyes are set on the presiding justice?
Your Honors,
Meaning, how do you handle stress?
Your Honors, I've been in the government for the past 39 years. I spent the substantial amount of that in the office of the Solicitor General, and my colleagues there can attest to the fact that even as a Assistant Solicitor General, I was very independent when it comes to taking positions respecting issues on a particular case. We are mandated by the Constitution to and the canon of judicial code of judicial conduct to only decide cases exclusively based on the evidence and the facts before the court. And that has always been my guiding principle, Your Honors.
Okay. I was looking over your records, and there are 2 cases here against you. One is undocketed by an anonymous. I don't know if you still remember that?
Yes, Your Honor, about these cases that
Yeah.
have not been decided within the period, within the time frame.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honors, without the, to my recollection, I was not required by the Honorable Judicial and Bar Council to comment on the said anonymous letter, but I did submit my comment on the said letter, Your Honors, and disputing the allegations made in that letter, Your Honors.
Okay, thank you. How effective are you as a leader, Justice?
Your Honors, from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest,
10?
I will not rate myself a 10, Your Honor. Probably I'll give myself a rating of 8, Your Honors.
Okay. And with that, I can surmise that you have a good rapport with your employees, with your colleagues, with your employees.
Yes, Your Honors. With respect to the employees, I have not encountered any problem with them. In fact, from day one when I assumed the leadership of the Sandiganbayan, I have adopted this policy, this so-called open door policy, that anyone who feels or who has any concern in the office may feel free to come and see me and lodge these concerns before me so that it could be acted upon with dispatch, Your Honors.
There is one case here which was already dismissed, but it was filed by, this is case number AM number 18-03-06-SB. This is a case filed by alleged concerned Sandiganbayan employees against you. Please tell us about it. The alleged actions that constituted the complete complaint against you are as follows. Number one, without any authority from the Sandiganbayan Bank, hosted a retirement party for Attorney Bocar. Two, without any authority from the Sandiganbayan Bank, caused the paintings works of the Sandiganbayan building. Third, ignored the resolution led by Acting Presiding Justice Roland Dorado, authorizing the reimbursement of the expenses in the retirement ceremony of retired Justice Jose Hernandez. And fourth, investigate the hiring of the Blue Guards in the Sandiganbayan, which did not allegedly pass through the Sandiganbayan Bank. What can you say about this? Though it was dismissed, I would say that there was a strained relationship between you and the employees.
Yes, Your Honors. To begin with, Your Honors, the alleged author of this letter came up with a statement, in fact, a declaration that they did that letter did not emanate from them. This letter was signed by all the officers of the Sandiganbayan Employees Association, Inc. I have absolutely no problem with the Sandiganbayan Employees Association, Your Honors. In fact, I've been very supportive of all their activities that will enhance their abilities and skills as employees of the court, Your Honors.
And how is your relationship with them now after the filing of the case and the dismissal of it?
It continues to be a happy relationship, Your Honors. In fact, the President and the officers, when they have some concerns, they come and see me, and all their concerns get addressed speedily, Your Honors.
Okay. Your application here is being opposed by two. One, a concerned citizen, and the other by the mga kawani kontra korupsyon. Are you familiar with this? Let's go first to the concerned citizen. The opposer bears that you is facing a pending motion to cite her in direct contempt of court before the Court of Appeals. You commented on it on January 24, 2011. This happened many years ago, but the opposition is still here.
I am not aware of that.
You're not aware?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Now we go to the second opposition, is mga kawani kontra korupsyon. This was emailed just this year, 2019, alleging that you and your husband's name appear in the Blue Book of Ben-Hur Louis as those who receive commissions from Janet Napoles. Two, that you were suspended by Ombudsman Desierto for gross misconduct, but was only reconsidered upon the intercession of the late Solicitor General Goko. Third, she is publicly known in the office of the Solicitor General as one of the most corrupt lawyers in the agency, involved in fixing cases on annulment of marriages and right-of-way. Fourth, she was instrumental in the acquittal of Janet Napoles and the reduction in the penalty of her accused, which became probationable. And fifth, she is also the kumare and classmate of Justice Greg Ong, who acquitted Napoles. You remember that?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, I also received a copy of that email from the JBC. I submitted also my comment on that letter, Your Honors, and I completely deny everything that is stated there, especially alluding to my lack of integrity. I do admit, however, that Greg Ong and Edna Herrera were my classmates in San Beda, batch 79. This is a matter of fact, Your Honors.
Anything more to say about it before we proceed to other questions?
Well, Your Honors, there is a prescribed procedure for filing administrative charges against justices of the Court of Appeals, the Sandiganbayan, and of the Court of Tax Appeals. So I urge anyone who has a legitimate complaint against me to file the necessary complaint with the Supreme Court, which has administrative jurisdiction or disciplinary jurisdiction over us, so that the process can be observed and the penalty will be imposed if there is indeed a wrongdoing on my part, Your Honors.
Okay, thank you. Now, if appointed to the Supreme Court, what do you think will be the biggest adjustment you will be facing coming from the Sandiganbayan, and what challenges do you foresee if appointed?
Well, Your Honors, I've been with the Sandiganbayan for the past 7 years, and our jurisdiction is limited. And so our exposure there is limited to criminal cases, although we have also some civil cases. And so since there will be the issues that will be brought before the Supreme Court will involve several fields of law, then I will have a lot of reading to make, although my experience with the Office of the Solicitor General for 30 years would greatly help me in reviewing or revisiting all these different fields of law, Your Honors.
Okay, thank you. Justice de la Cruz.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Afternoon. You also have several cases that were filed against you, but all were dismissed already.
Yes, Your Honor.
So I won't go into that. But your medical record shows that your blood chemistry is high.
Borderline, Your Honor. I was told it is borderline.
Borderline?
Sure.
All of the tests that were conducted on you?
Yes, I was told by my doctor, Your Honor.
That's high cholesterol, low cholesterol, FBS?
Yes, Your Honor. That's why I was just told to diet, to improve my diet and continue to exercise, Your Honor, which I have been doing.
Now, as a leader, how would you rate yourself?
Oh, I have always adhered to the saying that I will be a leader by example, Your Honor. If I want my group to report for work promptly, I'll do it myself first. If I want my people to be industrious, I will exhibit industry, Your Honor, by example, Your Honor.
In the manner of decision making, do you allow outside influences to affect you?
Definitely not, Your Honor.
You are objective in the decision making.
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, even if I know that the accused in our court is a very objectionable person, if there is no evidence against him, insofar as the case is concerned, we have no choice except to acquit, Your Honor.
Any major operation within the past 5 years now?
None, Your Honor.
Do you remember the case of Bong Revilla?
We are handling, our division is handling the case, Your Honor. In fact, there is still another case pending before us.
Here's the question. Was the Bong Revilla descent the most important case of your life?
All cases we are handling are important, Your Honor. But that was...
But specifically on the Bong Revilla descent.
But that was the only major case that where I dissented, Your Honor.
Yeah. The only one?
Yes, Your Honor.
No, a media outlet baptized you as the ethics man of the Sandiganbayan, the justice who prides himself as a man with no connections, and who would always say that those chosen over him for higher positions are more important. What do you feel whenever you hear these kind words towards you? And how do you maintain being the ethics man, if at all it's correct?
I am elated about that, Your Honor. But I think there are other people in the Sandiganbayan who are ethical also, Lord, Your Honor. I cannot claim to be the exclusive person, to the person to have that exclusive trait, Your Honor.
This was, this description of you came from a media outlet. Anyway, you did not make it to the short list last time you tried, and what aspect do you think you lack for not getting that appointment?
Oh, well, I always believe, Your Honor, that it is the prerogative of the President to appoint whoever he wants to appoint, and it so happens that he appoints a more qualified candidate, Your Honor.
Were you disappointed when you saw the list without your name?
No, I have not been disappointed, Your Honor, because I believe that it has been the prerogative of the President, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, this time, if you were to be appointed as a Supreme Court Justice, you will be serving for 5 years before reaching the age, the mandatory age of retirement, isn't it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, cite some novel ideas and programs you have in mind that you want to initiate in the judiciary that will border on legal ethics.
Probably, Your Honor, about the lifestyles of judges, probably something to that effect. I will try to find a measure that will look into the matter, Your Honor.
And what is your what is the happiest moment in your Sandiganbayan Justice life?
Happiest, every day is my happy moment, Your Honor. I'm always happy in my work, Your Honor.
Justice QUIROZ?
Yes, good afternoon.
From the time you were interviewed in October of 2018 until now, did you revisit your SALN that became the subject of JBC's inquiries?
I merely readjust it upon filing of the SALN, Your Honor. On the last day.
On the last day?
Yes, Your Honor.
In your 10 years, what reform, changes, contributions have you done for the growth of Sandiganbayan as a whole?
Well, I might claim, having been by operation of law to be the chairperson of the 4th Division last November of 2016. I think the 4th Division has started to increase our disposal of cases, and could still remember, I think last 2018 and even up to the present, the 4th Division is the highest, has the highest disposal of cases, Your Honor.
Yes, speaking of disposal of cases, your caseload as of 31 March 2019 is at 882,
Yes, Your Honor.
and your whole average monthly output is at 13.73.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied without output?
I'm sorry?
Are you satisfied without output?
Your Honor, there are some pending incident already, as well as due to a lot of incidents. We have set a lot of disposal perhaps this coming November and October. But we don't stop about it, Your Honor, because we started to lower down our workload from 1,300 cases.
What was the most controversial case you have handled at the Sandiganbayan?
I think the last is it's only an incident wherein the former President Aquino, when the Office of the Ombudsman filed to withdraw the information against him.
Now, there are several cases here filed against you, but they were dismissed, so I won't go into that. Except the opposition. Are you aware of this opposition?
No, Your Honor.
This was filed by a certain Luis D. Martinez. That's long time ago, but
Yes.
still here.
Yes, but since that guy does not, could not perhaps make an under oath, that is how to harass. But I could only surmise, and I'm trying to guess. That person is a combination of two names. The Manuel, they have the same Manuel, and then that's the first case I inhibited myself last 2008 in Sandiganbayan. And perhaps being my compadre, perhaps he is expecting that I'll be giving him a favor that lead to his conviction. And that's it. And I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I try myself. That's why when the JBC asked me how many cases in my entire life in Sandiganbayan that I inhibited myself, it's only two. One is 2008 for obvious reason. The other one is a co-accused of high-profile case due to the closeness of that person to our family. But he is merely a co-accused, a private person.
No, there are two others here, but their complaints merely centered on a decision that you penned. You're physically fit to perform your duties as a Sandiganbayan Justice. Now, my question is, we go to some questions that would entail some or involve some news lately. Of course, there are decisions in the Supreme Court that you are not always in conformity with. Is that correct, Justice Quiroz?
Yes, Your Honor.
Kindly cite to us a decision, one decision of the Supreme Court.
Actually, it's a resolution because me being for a long time being a presiding judge in the lower court, it's very elementary that courts could not grant bail without due hearing. In the case of accused Enrile, the Supreme Court granted bail. I'm not against the merits, but there are so many RTC judges who've been removed or dismissed from the service, granting a bail without due hearing. But in this case, it was based on health, age, which I cannot find under the rules of court. I just wonder, giving, well, as to the merits, I don't want to touch it, but as to no hearing of the petition, that is something unusual to me, Your Honor.
How about you, Justice CABOTAJE-TANG? Was there a decision of the Supreme Court that you were not in conformity with?
Yes, Your Honors. In the case of the case of there's this case about involving the crime of parricide, where the wife killed her husband, and the title of the case escapes me now, Your Honors. And it is in this. She was convicted of parricide by the trial court, and the case went to the Supreme Court on automatic review because she was sentenced to the penalty of death, because at that time the death penalty was still allowed to be imposed in certain cases. So on appeal, on automatic appeal, the Supreme Court reduced the penalty, and it imposed an indeterminate penalty on the accused. But the penalty actually should have been, is actually reclusion perpetua, because by the time the Supreme Court decided the case, the penalty for death has, the imposition of the penalty of death has been proscribed, Your Honors. So, reclusion perpetua being an indivisible penalty, no amount of ordinary mitigating circumstances could result in the reduction of the penalty by a degree. Because according to the Supreme Court, reclusion perpetua remains to be an indivisible penalty. In that particular case, the Supreme Court appreciated several ordinary mitigating circumstances in favor of I think it's Canosa or that case. And because of the appreciation by the Supreme Court of the several ordinary mitigating circumstances, it imposed an indeterminate penalty on the accused, which should not have been the case, Your Honors. In fact, later on, I read from the compendium of the late Justice Lawrence Regalado that the imposition of that indeterminate penalty was, to quote the word of Justice Regalado, it was an aberration, because it could not have been, the penalty of reclusion perpetua could not have been reduced by several degrees because of the presence of ordinary mitigating circumstances, Your Honors.
You still cannot remember the case?
Maybe, Your Honor, you can help me recollect it.
Justice de la Cruz.
Yes, Your Honor. We have a couple of cases where we have been reversed by the Supreme Court, Your Honor, but the reversal were fully supported by jurisprudence, so I have no reason why I should be disappointed about it or question the decision, Your Honor.
Now, what are the two functions of the Supreme Court, and where can it be found? The provision. Yes?
Under Article 8 of the Constitution, Your Honor. The
And what
function,
are those
judicial
functions?
review, Your Honor, and the administrative function over judges, and court personnel, Your Honor.
Do you share his view, Justice QUIROZ?
Yes, Your Honor.
How about you, Justice CABOTAJE-TANG?
Your Honor, before I respond, I now recall that case. It's Henosa versus People.
Okay.
Well, I agree with the answer of Justice de la Cruz. The Supreme Court exercises both adjudicatory and administrative functions. Adjudicatory functions pertain to the power of the Supreme Court to resolve actual cases and controversies, as well as cases where there is an allegation of grave abuse of discretion on the part of government officials or employees. And adjudicative function and administrative functions refer to the power of the courts insofar as supervision of the lower courts are concerned, Your Honors.
Do you remember the safeguards that to ensure the independence of the judiciary? You are applying for the Supreme Court, and you should know this. Pass? Yes, Justice de la Cruz.
Under the new Code of Judicial Conduct for the Philippine Judiciary, there is that Canon 1, Your Honor, where judges are mandated to be independent in their decision-making. That judges should only rely on the facts and the laws of the case and should not be swayed by any influence from any sources, whether within or without, Your Honor. So we adhere to that canon.
Justice QUIROZ?
In addition, Your Honor, I would like to have that self-restraint, especially to the social obligation of each and every member of the judiciary.
Can you consider as a safeguard the removal from the Commission of Appointments the power to confirm appointments upon judges and justices? Justice QUIROZ?
Yes, at present, the appointment of the member of the judiciary is not subject to the confirmation, unlike before. Okay. At present, I am more satisfied so as to avoid more political intervention insofar as the promotion or to be appointed as member of the judiciary, Your Honor.
Justice CABOTAJE-TANG?
Your Honors, I believe that the current setup of vetting and choosing and appointing a member of the Supreme Court should remain, Your Honors. I think this is the reason for the creation of the JBC is to insulate as much as possible political intervention in the vetting and selection of the members of the Supreme Court. Although, in the ultimate analysis, the appointment of a member of the Supreme Court is rest with the President because it is his choice and a singular choice to whom to appoint to the position, Your Honors.
Justice de la Cruz?
Yes, Your Honor. I also subscribe to that view that the vetting process being conducted by the Judicial Bar Council is very appropriate and very effective, I believe, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, the Department of thank you. Foreign Affairs said that the Philippines will soon accede to the Hague Service Convention, a treaty that simplifies the process of serving court documents on parties living in another state. It has been said that it will address court delays and simplify the serving of summons and other court documents in a foreign jurisdiction. What is your take on this? Oh, yes, Justice De La Cruz.
Well, I heard about that treaty about the authentication of documents coming from abroad to be used in the Philippines. Before, it used to be the consular office of the Philippines will have to authenticate the documents coming from, say, from the United States, which document will be used in the Philippines. But I think there is that ribbon attached to the document. Mm-hmm. Now, based on that new setup, the authentication will be may be done without the ribbon on the document, which may already be used in the Philippines as an authentic document, Your Honor.
Justice QUIROZ, your take on this?
I share the same observation, Your Honor, on that point.
And you also share the same, Justice CABOTAJE-TANG?
Yes, Your Honors, because it will make it relatively easier for those parties who have an interest in these documents.
Okay, Justice QUIROZ. Distinguish a bisexual from a transgender.
I think the transgender had already changed the organ of its identity of sex. Bisexual is somehow a person who have two personalities insofar as sexual is concerned. The way I understand it, he could be attracted to a man or even to a woman or something like that. That's to me. Transgender is who already make a choice of his own sexual identity.
What about an hermaphrodite?
Wow. Your Honor, pass.
Okay. We'll go to Justice CABOTAJE-TANG.
My understanding, Your Honors, of a hermaphrodite is one who has two organs, but one organ is dominant over the other, and that person would have to choose what his sex would be.
Justice De La Cruz?
I agree with the view of PJ Tang, that the hermaphrodite is a person who has two organs, one dominant and the other is not, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, to increase LGU's revenue collection, amendment to the provisions of the Local Government Code is proposed on the situs of the tax. This will provide for the allocation of the VAT paid by manufacturers, assemblers, contractors, producers, and exporters to the municipality or city where they are operating instead of paying to the place where the principal office is located. Your thoughts on this, Justice QUIROZ?
Are we referring to the situs of tax?
Status of the tax.
Well, as long as that company derive an income from the LGU, well, I think the LGU has all the right to impose tax from them, as long as it is would be a reasonable taxation, Your Honor.
Where shall the tax be paid? At the principal office of the entity or the agency or the corporation, or at the place where the property is located?
The place where they recognize to be the place of the main transaction, for example, the head office of that business entity, Your Honor. But for sure, those satellite offices of this main office must likewise pay the appropriate TL tax and business tax about it, Your Honor.
Yeah. Justice de la Cruz.
Well, I believe that it's not equitable that the taxpayer should pay the taxes in the place where the taxpayer derives income, Your Honor.
And your thought on this, Justice CABOTAJE-TANG? Differentiate judicial legislation from judicial restraint. Justice de la Cruz.
Judicial restraint, Your Honor, is the attitude of the court to not interfere with a case involving political questions, Your Honor. And if a certain power is allocated or given to a certain branch of the government, but not within the authority of the Supreme Court, like political, when the case involves political question, the Supreme Court should not decide on the matter, not to intervene on the matter, on the power, political, on the power, on the branch of the government that has that power, Your Honor. The judicial legislation, as I understand it, is when the Supreme Court does the role of the legislature through decision-making power, Your Honor. And I don't think that should be done. Because if the power is allocated to a certain branch of the government, not the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court should not tinker about it, Your Honor.
Now, the United States urged the Philippines to craft a code of conduct in the South China Sea among countries in the ASEAN. If the crafting of this code of ethics will push through, will it be consistent to international laws and treaties which the Philippines is a signatory, or will it violate some? Justice QUIROZ?
I believe, Your Honor, surely they will violate, because this is, they are just formulating. For sure, there could be some treaties that even the Philippines might have already a signatory, and yet whatever they may arrive. That's why these things should be done, that all stakeholders should be notified and to consider what will be the consequence as to the other signatories and other international personalities to that effect, Your Honor.
Justice CABOTAJE-TANG, what is the doctrine of processual presumption?
Your Honor, this doctrine relates to the rules on evidence. This doctrine says that when a law is invoked in support of a certain claim in a given case, then that law must be proved as a matter of fact, because our local courts do not take judicial notice of foreign laws. And if no contrary proof is shown, if no contrary proof is offered, then the law of that foreign country will be presumed to be the same as our local laws.
Okay. Is betrayal of public trust a new ground for impeachment under the 1987 Constitution? Justice de la Cruz.
I think it has been a ground for impeachment, Your Honor, betrayal of public trust.
Support your answer.
Well, betrayal of public trust embraces acts which will acts of the impeachable official that may be considered as contrary to the public trust, Your Honor.
Soji bill is now one of the favorite topics in social media and other platforms. For you, Justice QUIROZ, how important is religious belief in discussing the LGBT plus issues in general?
Well, those two rights, I mean, one is religion, the other one is equality insofar as the sex preference of a person, it would always be coexistence to each other, as well as there could have been some conflict between the two. But that conflict should be compromised. It would always be depend on the person concerned. Because the person invoking his right to equality, as well as this religion, okay, depending what kind of religion too, and then what kind of preference of sexual a person had. Because to draw a line would be, at this time, might be premature and to be acceptable to both person concerned, Your Honor.
Justice CABOTAJE-TANG.
Your Honors, I respectfully submit that religion should never be considered as a factor in passing or enacting this bill into law, because no law, the Constitution says that there should be no law establishing some kind of a religion. So if the bill, if the passage of that bill into law, if religion were considered to be a factor on whether to pass that bill into law, this might violate a provision of the Constitution.
Justice de la Cruz.
I think, Your Honor, SOGI bill embraces many aspects, one of which is the respect for human rights. To that aspect, Your Honor, I have no objection, because everybody's human rights should be respected. But with respect to certain aspect where the person itself will be made to choose his or her own gender, I will not agree to that, because once a person is born, it is already there. And I remember that if this LGBTQ plus will be given more rights than the male or the female sectors of the society, then that will in effect be discriminating against them. So insofar as human rights are concerned, we should respect them, Your Honor.
how do you then, or how would you understand this phrase? Rights beget responsibilities and progress begets change, Justice de la Cruz.
It is but natural that if when we are given rights, it carries with it the corresponding responsibilities, Your Honor. And I believe also that progress entails certain discomforts, and that is part of it, Your Honor.
Justice CABOTAJE-TANG.
Your Honors, I agree with the answer of Justice de la Cruz. For every right, there is a responsibility, as they say, Your Honors. And when we speak of progress, progress necessarily entails change, Your Honors.
Justice QUIROZ.
Your Honor, as a saying, in every progress, there is a corresponding sacrifice. For example, in the case of mining, while mining, part of it could be a mining of metals to be used as kitchen utensils, but on the other hand, there is damages in our natural resources. So, with regards to the other one you asked, that's progress. The other one is the obligation. In
Yeah, that it's
rights, the rights,
Rights, yeah.
in every rights there is again a corresponding obligation in duties. That is acceptable to us, Your Honor. Thank you.
Two weeks ago, it was reported that the military saw about 5 Chinese warships passing through Philippine waters, and the palace instantly issued a statement stating that to avoid misunderstanding in the future, the President is putting on notice that all foreign vessels passing through our territorial waters must notify and get clearance from the proper government authority well in advance of the actual passage. Is this directive in compliance or in accordance with the existing international laws? Why or why not? Justice CABOTAJE-TANG.
Yes, Your Honors, this is in conformity with the international law because the Philippines has sovereignty over its territorial waters, and therefore the consent of the state, the Philippines, must be obtained before any foreign vessel of a foreign country can enter our territorial waters.
For example, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources entered into a MOA with Thailand, allowing fishermen of the mentioned country to fish within 200 miles from the Philippine sea coasts, subject to condition that Filipino fishermen be allowed to use Thai fishing equipment and to learn the modern technology of fishing. Would the agreement be valid, Justice QUIROZ?
If the agreement be ratified in the form of a treaty, I believe the agreement is valid because there are some agreements which do not create an obligation or even an obligation of its citizenry. For example, an exchange of student. Well, for the meantime, that's an agreement between two countries. I believe it does not necessitate to have ratification from Senate. But should there be using the exclusive economic zone of a country, as well as will be creating a mutual obligation to each other, the mandatory ratification of that agreement should be done, Your Honor.
But in this particular example, Was the agreement valid?
The agreement is not valid. That's my view, Your Honor.
The Public Attorney's Office is the legal counsel for various families of dead victims of dengue. In fact, it has already filed 44 complaints. Recently, news broke out that a group of lawyers from the PAO have asked the Office of the Ombudsman to investigate PAO chief and a forensics expert for allegedly using the dengue controversy in overstocking office supplies and obtaining extra funds. Did the lawyers of PAO who allegedly asked the Ombudsman to investigate the chief violated certain provisions of the Code of Professional Responsibility? Your take on this, Justice De La Cruz?
Well, filing a complaint is a prerogative of everybody, Your Honor. However, whether or not that complaint will succeed is a different matter. It depends on the evidence to be presented by the complainant. But in that case, I understand that the complaint was filed anonymously, and I'm not sure how the complainant will be able to prove the complaint, Your Honors.
Now, Senators Gordon Zubiri last week filed separate bills meant to create a separate facility for heinous crimes, victims or convicts to isolate them and to prevent them from committing more crimes. What are your thoughts on it? Justice CABOTAJE-TANG.
Your Honors, I respectfully submit that if that bill were passed into law, it will pass the test of constitutionality. Because here, obviously, the intention of the legislature is to, in a way, isolate these convicted prisoners so that they cannot, again, commit any crime during their period of confinement.
Attorney or Justice QUIROZ, do you share her view?
With regards to those, I think that would be in compliance with the obligation of the government to preserve the life of the prisoner. That's part of it, Your Honor. So if the government will feel it for the best of the prisoner, so be it, Your Honor.
Justice De La Cruz, the Supreme Court dismissed the writ of kalikasan suit filed by lawyers representing fisher folk from Palawan and Zambales seeking government action on the disputed areas of the West Philippine Sea. The Supreme Court pointed out the unusual proceedings when the Office of the Solicitor General as counsel for the respondents presented sworn statements from some of the petitioners saying they had no idea of the petition. If you were to look at the substantive issues foregoing the procedural ones, will you grant the petition?
Well, I read that case in the papers, and I think the dismissal of the case was due to the withdrawal of the complaint by the supposed complainants, who claimed that they did not file the complaint or they were misled. That was what I read. And if the complainant themselves are the one who are withdrawing their complaint, claiming that they did not, they were misled into filing the complaint, well, the dismissal of the complaint is proper, Your Honor.
Now, 2019 marks the 25th year of UNCLOS, or known as the world's constitution for the oceans. Philippine Foreign Secretary in a speech said the following: "If only the greatest power on earth led the example of subscribing to UNCLOS, it would be a safer world." This, of course, pertains to the United States of America, and following that remark, if UNCLOS will be ratified by United States of America, do you think China will now honor the arbitration case won by the Philippines against it? Justice QUIROZ?
With the characteristics shown by the Chinese people, I don't think they will only acknowledge whatever as long as that property will go to them, but not to give it to the Philippines. So if the question whether it will be ratified by United States, the UNCLOS, I still firmly believe the Chinese people will be hard-headed and stubborn to claim their rights to over the property, Your Honor.
Thank you. My last question, and this is addressed to the three of you. First, to Justice CABOTAJE-TANG. Give me a reason that I will vote for you.
Your Honors, as I have stated earlier, I've been in the government and serving this government for the past 39 years. And I have done so with absolute dedication and faithfulness to the laws. And 30 years of, almost 31 years of this have been my service was devoted to the office of the Solicitor General, representing the interests of the Republic of the Philippines. There I was honed and mentored by, insofar as I'm concerned personally, by some of the best legal minds in the country. To name a few: former Solicitor General Estelito P. Mendoza, Justice Benipayo, and other Solicitors General, and to whom I owe much for what I have learned and imbibed during those years that I was there. And having worked with the Office of the Solicitor General for that substantial period of time, I was exposed to the different fields of law. I litigated, I wrote pleadings, I argued before the various courts in the country. I also had my fair share in arguing before the Supreme Court involving policy cases of the government, where I won some of them. And I've been with the judiciary for the past 7 years. All this together, I respectfully submit, Your Honors, have now honed me and my skills to go to a higher position, which is in the Supreme Court, Your Honors. Thank you.
Justice De La Cruz?
Your Honor, I leave my faith to the wise vetting of this body. My records are open to the public in the Sandiganbayan. I've been there for now going 16 years. And I have been discharging my functions as Associate Justice of the Sandiganbayan and Chair of the First Division with independence, integrity, and probity, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Justice QUIROZ?
Thank you. 1 year after I had my oath as a lawyer, I joined the prosecution arm of the government, public prosecution arm of the government, through the Office of the City Fiscal of Manila as a special counsel. Later, I joined when I was invited to the House of Representatives by no less than Speaker Ramon Mitra just to help for a while, just to set up the House. And then later, I joined the Office of the Solicitor General. And after almost 5 years staying there, I was luckily appointed as METC Judge of Pasig and then later on I was promoted to RTC, Pasig, and Marikina, and then now, since 2008, upon joining the Sandiganbayan, up to the present, I am now vying for the Supreme Court position. What perhaps might, aside from my 27 years member of the judiciary, well, I have tried what I have learned and what I have experienced to have to conduct a criminal proceedings wherein the pretrial was terminated month of July, but on the same year, we were able to promulgate it on November, the decision. So little by little, due to such experience, I claim, I was able to adapt it to help the speedy disposition of cases before our division. And hopefully, those experience give me and mastered that experience to have the courage to apply for this position. Thank you very much, Your Honors.
Okay, that was my last question. Good afternoon and good luck to three of you.
Thank you very much, Judge De Monteverde, Justice Tiha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Your Honors. This is the second time I have interviewed you in a span of 2 months. When was the last time I interviewed? Last month? 2 months ago?
I think 2 months ago,
2
Your
months
Honor.
ago, yes. It is good that we recalled you for interview because of the sheer number of people we interview. Like, for example, there are about 28 or 29 applicants for the Supreme Court. We tend to forget about the people we interviewed, more so after we have vetted it already. We made a short list. So I think it's important because if you say your interview for 1 year, your interview is good for 1 year, members of the JBC do not have good memories. So they might tend to forget what actually transpired during the actual interview. So I think this is good that you were recalled and we had this interaction again. I have no doubt that all of you are eminently qualified. But the most important thing is, are you ready to face the challenges of the Supreme Court, knowing that the nature of the work you will be facing, the volume of work you will be facing, are quite distinct and different from the present work you're doing. Having said that, let me just ask you a few questions. In response to the question of Judge De Monteverde on your preference for the JBC or giving back the screening process to the Commission and Appointments, you opted to say that the JBC is better. Did I hear you right? And you were saying there will be less political? There are 7 members of the JBC. There are 24 members of the Commission and Appointments. Isn't it that it is easier to influence 7 people than 24 people? Justice QUIROZ, you're smiling, sir.
No, Your Honors, because I think all applicants would always respect the independence of all the members of the JBC, because all of you are retired members.
I hope you're not suggesting that members of the Commission on Appointments are less independent than the JBC.
They are, because of the nature of their job, they have to campaign, they have to go they go out just to gain votes, and they have to engage with the warlords during election day, and therefore it's inimitable that they cannot maintain independence, Your Honors. Please, anyway, the JBC, there is only one member who had a political inclination, but in totality,
Who is that one member?
I think a representative from Senate or Congress, Your Honors.
What about the Secretary of Justice? Is he apolitical?
Well, perhaps 50-50, because he works directly with the Office of the President.
Justice de la Cruz, what about, why do you think some judges are being killed? What is the reason for this?
Well, one reason probably is because of dissatisfied litigant, and another.
Is it because some of these judges are rendering unjust or poor decisions?
I'm not sure, Your Honor, but when I entered the service of the Sandiganbayan, one old member of the Sandiganbayan told me, Efren, when you decide cases, see to it that decide the cases on the merits, because if you will acquit somebody who should be convicted, the complainant will go after you. And if you acquit, or if you convict somebody who should not be convicted, the accused will go after you. Probably there are those who are not satisfied with the decision, Your Honor.
So what steps, what remedial measures will you suggest to the court to reduce or minimize killings of judges?
Well, following that advice, I think one way is to decide the case on the merits, and second,
What about security?
security. I have been with the Sandiganbayan for 16 years, and many have been asking me if I have a bodyguard, but I told them that I do not need bodyguard.
You
Your
don't
Honor.
have to announce that publicly. That might pose a security risk to you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I believe that I don't have a need for it, Your Honor.
PJ Ampi, don't you think judges should instead be elected than appointed, so that if the community are not happy with the performance of the judge, he or she can easily be replaced?
Your Honors, I respectfully submit that judges should not be elected, because without meaning to denigrate the ability of the voters to select the good ones, I think this body, the JBC, in the best position to vet who is the most competent among the applicants to recommend for appointment to the President. After all, the work of a judge is to adjudicate, principle is to adjudicate cases, and therefore the one who sits to judge cases should be someone who is capable to decide cases competently, Your Honors.
The JBC vet applicants for judgeship in the judiciary, but the JBC has nothing to do with monitoring the performance of judges already appointed. And the office and the Supreme Court, through the Office of the Court Administrator, the way I look at it, loosely monitors judges spread all over the country, except probably with respect to work output, things like that, financial accountability, or when somebody files a complaint. But nobody really monitors on a regular basis the performance of judges. Is it important that performance of judges and justices should be monitored on a regular basis by the Supreme Court?
Yes, Your Honors, to be able to ascertain whether the judges comply with the prescribed periods within which to decide and resolve cases.
What about competence? Will you agree with me that competence will include not only intellectual competence, but emotional, even psychological and mental competence?
That is correct, Your Honors. In fact, they say that nowadays, emotional quotient is more important than the IQ. So, but to me, it's not, one should not be independent from the other, but a confluence of all these factors, Your Honors.
Can you tell the council, based on your experience, observation, and even information, of some erratic behavior or aberrant attitude of judges and justices as well?
Well, Your Honors, I have not received any reports from
You have not observed
observed.
any erratic or aberrant behavior?
None, Your Honors. I have not noted.
You must be living in a glass cage or something like that.
Well, with respect to judges, Your Honors, I have not actually gone around and to enable me to afford me the opportunity to make these observations. In particular, to the Sandiganbayan, Your Honors, I have not noted anything aberrant in any of the behavior of any of the
Justice
justices.
QUIROZ, based on your prior experience as a prosecutor and even as a judge, what aberrant behavior or erratic attitude some judges have displayed?
I cannot remember, Your Honor, because when I was a trial fiscal then, all of my presiding judges became the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
It doesn't mean that all of them were
That-
sane, correct?
Yeah. Well, perhaps I was able to meet them when they have reached the age of maturity, Your Honor, perhaps.
Is mental health of judges important? That's my question.
To me, yes, very important, Your Honor.
That's
Mental.
why we conduct psychological profile of
Yes, Your Honor.
judges.
The only problem with our examination, if I may, we cannot get the result. Although the source is ours, but we cannot, even upon our request, we cannot. That's why we cannot even correct ourselves should there be a suggestion from the psychiatrist.
So you agree that the results of a psychological examination should be discussed in confidence, privately, with the interviewee or with the person being subjected, so that the weaknesses, aberrations can be discussed with that person so that it can be corrected.
Yes, Your Honor, especially the attending physician, the psychologist.
We will take note of that.
Thank you very much.
Justice de la Cruz, if a judge is mentally erratic, exhibits weird temperament, shouts at litigants, shouts at lawyers, does it reflect on the competence of that judge?
Not necessarily, Your Honor, but it reflects on his character, Your Honor. I remember when
Can you expect a judge who is mentally affected to render a just judgment?
it might affect his ability to render a just decision, Your Honor, but
Is that good or bad behavior?
well, that is a really bad behavior because we are mandated to respect litigants. We are mandated to respect everybody, and that is a sign of disrespect, Your Honor.
Constitution says that members of the judiciary shall it's in the Constitution, they shall hold office
During the
during good behavior until they reach the age of 70 or become incapacitated to discharge the duties of their office. Is that a sufficient ground for the Supreme Court, after due investigation, and it is established that the magistrate is mentally incompetent, to remove that magistrate from office?
I think so, because that is an exhibition of that judge who is violating that provision of the Constitution will be exhibiting bad behavior, not good behavior, Your Honor.
Thank you. Presiding Justice Ampi, what doctrine was mentioned by the Supreme Court as a filtering mechanism? The Supreme Court in one case referred to that doctrine as a filtering or a screening mechanism. Can you, if you know about it, or can you make a guess? What doctrine is that?
Your Honors, I'll make a guess. Does it refer to the doctrine of hierarchy of courts?
Can you explain hierarchy of courts?
Hierarchy of courts. In the case of Samal that was penned by Justice Jardeleza, the Supreme Court said that it will not take cognizance of cases where the remedy or relief that is being sought for may be availed of before the lower courts, either the RTs, regional trial courts, or the Court of Appeals, Your Honors, because according to the Supreme Court, it has a concurrent jurisdiction with respect to petitions for certiorari, mandamus, and prohibition. And so therefore, the resort must first be had before the lower courts, before immediate resort to the Supreme Court can be made.
Justice de la Cruz, what is your understanding of a case which involves transcendental importance?
I believe that when a case involves an issue that is of transcendental importance, it will affect the citizenry as a whole, so that even if the issue is rendered moot and academic, the Supreme Court should still continue to resolve the matter, Your Honor.
Justice QUIROZ, if a case involves transcendental importance, in your opinion, is the Supreme Court allowed to look into factual questions?
In the exercise of their power, they may delegate it, or they may, they have to delegate it, Your Honor, because it will be...
Even if the case is of transcendental importance, if it involves factual questions, they should not take cognizance of it? Is that what you're saying?
They will, but that's why, Your Honor, I recommend that they will delegate the reception of the factual.
I'm not asking your recommendation, sir, but what should the Supreme Court do?
Well, well, they have to proceed. If there is a necessity for that, they have to go and proceed, Your Honor.
As held in Jhosep, the transcendental importance doctrine does not clothe the Supreme Court with the power to tackle factual questions. Is there an exception? Can you think of an exception You were correct earlier, but when I said something, you backtrack and you change your mind. That's not a very good characteristic of somebody in the Supreme Court. You easily swayed, Justice QUIROZ?
Well, because perhaps of your moral ascendancy, I have to.
Is the moral ascendancy based on age or something?
No, according to what you appear to be very knowledgeable.
Now, going back to the question. So, even if it is of transcendental importance, the Supreme Court said in Geo Summer, it is not clothed with the authority to tackle factual questions. But there is an exception. Can you venture a guess on what that exception is, wherein the court can go into factual issues?
Actually, Your Honor, I have encountered a decision wherein the Supreme Court even suspend the rules of court. So therefore, at any procedure, any matter.
You're saying the Supreme Court whimsically, arbitrarily, can just say, let's suspend the rules and then let's just tackle the issue. But is there a statutory exemption that allows the Supreme Court to handle factual basis, even if it is a matter of transcendental importance?
I cannot right now, Your Honor, come up with the idea or the law.
J. Ampi, can you think of one?
Your Honors, I recall under Rule 45, a petition for review on certiorari, which wherein the rules provide that only questions of law may be raised. But in certain cases, the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of cases raising factual issues where, for example, the decision of that is being challenged is contrary to the evidence that is before the court, Your Honors. So,
even if it is of transcendental importance, but applying the doctrine on hierarchy of courts, if it involves factual issues, under Geo Summer, the Supreme Court said it should refuse to tackle. It doesn't have the authority, even if it is of transcendental importance, except in one case. Can you venture a guess? What is that exception?
maybe there is an urgent necessity that requires the Supreme Court to resolve the issue with dispatch, Your Honors.
Such as? You cannot remember.
I cannot remember you.
De la Cruz, can you venture a guess?
If my guess is, Your Honor, is if there is an urgency on the issue raised before the Supreme Court, such that many people will be affected, I guess the Supreme Court may.
Such as?
For example, when it comes to health issues, Your Honor, if it will be to the detriment of the people.
Baksha, for example. Baksha, so the Supreme Court should take cognizance of a petition.
Because of the rising cases of Deng Baksha, Your Honor, I think the Supreme Court.
Remand it to the lower courts?
If they are already contained in the records coming from the lower courts, I don't think that there is still a need for the Supreme Court to remand the matter to the lower courts, Your Honor.
What about Section 18, Article 7 of the Constitution, which says that the Supreme Court has the constitutional mandate to review the sufficiency of the factual basis of the President's proclamation of martial law? That's the exception.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry.
Earlier, in response to the query of Judge de Monteverde on the covenant, the convention relating to the authentication of public documents, official documents for use abroad, what do you call that convention, Justice QUIROZ? You assented, you agreed with,
I
with your
think it's
colleagues.
a Hague Convention.
It's closer. It was in The Hague, but what do you call that convention?
I just have heard it or passed it to a little newspaper. That's why, Your Honor, I don't know
Is it
long.
important for a Supreme Court justice to take judicial notice of newspaper accounts or even information or the public sentiments on social media, or rely on official pronouncements by the President through radio and television in deciding cases?
No, Your Honor, I'm sorry, no.
So you cannot cite that in your decision, that according to Philippine Daily Inquirer.
I'm
you
sorry.
can-
But you just asked me the source. That's why I'm quite close. But that's why I just give out my
Said The
reason.
Hague, okay.
I never thought that this will be part of my decision making, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
PJMP, what do you call that convention?
It's the Apostille Convention. Your Honor.
Apostille. So what is apostille? What is exactly is apostille?
Apostille is actually, it's a special certificate that is issued by the Secretary.
It's a stamp.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, it's a
That-
stamp. It's a seal. It's a
yes.
stamp.
That will now, that can be, that will do away with the certifications that are normally, authentication rather, of a document in a consulate or in an embassy.
The accession to the Apostille Convention was signed by President Duterte. Who are the three Supreme Court justices who went to The Hague to deposit the accession to the Apostille Convention? You venture a guess?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Otherwise, they will not vote for you in the Supreme Court. Justice de la Cruz?
I am not sure, but I will guess, Your Honor. The question is
Who are the three Supreme Court justices who accompanied the deposit of the Philippine accession to the Apostille Convention in The Hague last year?
I think the Chief Justice is one of them, Your Honor.
Wrong. Another guess. There are 15 to choose from. Just mention them in random.
The senior justices, Justice
Carpio?
Antonio Carpio,
Wrong.
Justice
If you give the wrong answers, they will not vote for you in the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court. I'm not sure, Your Honor.
Justice Queiroz, this your turn.
Yes, Your Honor, but I learned my lesson a while ago. I don't want to base my decision through guessing.
The two justices were Justice Leonen and Justice Hesmundo. Who is the third justice? PJ Anpi. Otherwise, he will not vote for you. Are you asking me a question? Who is the third justice? Yes, I accompanied them. So we went to The Hague, okay. Is it important, is it necessary for its validity that it should be ratified by the Senate? The Apostille Convention.
I am I going to answer that, Your Honor?
Yes or no? And why?
Your Honor, frankly, I do not know whether this convention is a treaty or whether it's an international agreement or an executive agreement. But if it's a treaty, it needs concurrence by 2/3 vote of the Senate. And if it's an international agreement or an executive agreement, it need not, it is,
Your discourse is enlightening, but in the Supreme Court, you cannot be ambivalent during the deliberation. You
Yes.
have to be certain about a particular position.
Yes, Your Honor.
So what is your position on this? Is it a treaty or an executive agreement?
I think it's an executive agreement, Your Honor.
You agree, Justice De La Cruz?
Yes, Your Honor, that's why there's no need for the Senate to ratify the same.
One last question. Are court employees covered by the civil service, Justice QUIROZ?
Yes, Your Honor.
Section 50, Rule 10 of the revised rules on administrative cases and civil service. This is the 2011 revised rules on administrative cases and civil service. It is now Section 55, Rule 10 of the 2017 rules on administrative cases and civil service. It provides that if the respondent, the subject employee, is found guilty of 2 or more charges or counts, the penalty to be imposed should be that corresponding to the most serious charge, and the rest shall be considered as aggravating circumstances. So that's the rule on administrative cases in civil service. The question is, can you apply this to judges or justices of lower courts found guilty of multiple offenses? So, if a judge or a justice is accused of at least two offenses, under this rule on admin cases in civil service, you impose the higher penalty, and the rest shall be considered as aggravating circumstances. Justice De La Cruz, can this be applied to judges and justices of lower courts?
Your Honor, I don't agree. I don't think that that could apply to judges and justices of the judiciary, because under our rules of court, each offense will be subject to the corresponding penalty, Your Honor, and not merely as aggravating circumstances.
So what is your answer, Justice?
I don't think that that will apply, Your Honor,
So it's not applicable
to judges and
to-
justices, Your Honor.
to judges and justices of lower courts, even if they are covered by the civil service.
Yes, Your Honor.
And
That
the
is my-
reason being,
that the Supreme Court has the exclusive authority over, disciplinary authority over judges and justices, Your
so
Honor.
the penalty for judges and justices found guilty of multiple offenses will be what?
Will be corresponding to each violation of the, for each offense, there should be a corresponding penalty, Your Honor.
Justice Quiroz, do you agree with that?
Yes, Your Honor. In the first place, that's the first time. I do not know whether while it might be true that it is part of the existing administrative rules for the court employees, but I don't think it's now being applied, because it should be for each demeanor or
I'm
mistakes.
talking, Justice, of judges and justices.
Yes, I do not subscribe that the same be applied against judges or justices, Your Honor.
So it should be heavier, it should be higher. So
No.
if you are found guilty of 2 offenses, there
Then-
should be 2 penalties for
Yes.
judges and justices.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And what is the reason for that?
Well, because that would be the result, and it would be serving a deterrent for each member of the judiciary, that you will be suffering the same penalty for every reoccurrence of every mistake that you might have commit in the future, Your Honor.
The most noble justification is there's a higher standard expected for judges and justices. PJ Ampi, what about other court personnel in the judiciary? What do you apply? Is
Well-
it the same as the judges and justices?
No, Your Honors. In fact, in practice in our court, whenever there is an administrative charge against official or employees lower than a justice, we apply the ARACs or the revised rules of in administrative cases issued by the Civil Service Commission, Your Honors.
That's correct. That is, you read the case of Boston Finance and Investment Corporation versus Gonzalez, administrative matter RTJ 18-2520, promulgated October 9, 2018, and Bank Justice Perlas Bernabe. So there's the following guidelines. So for judges and justices of lower courts, what do you apply? Rule 140 of the Rules of Court. In other words, if you are found guilty of multiple offenses, you are imposed upon separate penalties for each violation. But for other court employees who are not judges and justices in the judiciary, then you apply the rules on admin cases or civil service. That is supposed to be my last question, but all right. Thank you and good luck to everybody.
Thank you very much, Justice T. Judge Elihu.
All right, can we have a break, Mr. Chair, to give the applicants time to relieve themselves and time also to rest. They've been sitting for 2 hours. Can we give them what, 5 to 10 minutes?
Don't go home.
Let's have a break, Chair. All right, 5 minutes, please. Welcome. All right, Justice Mendoza, can we resume the interview? Yes, good afternoon, Justices.
Good afternoon.
All right, Justice Ampi, you've been the presiding justice of the Sandiganbayan for how many years?
6 years, Your Honors. It will be my 6th year in October.
All right, the last time you were interviewed by this representation that I asked you whether, do you agree that a magistrate should not only be adept to adjudication but also as to the administrative aspect?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then being the presiding justice of the court of the Sandiganbayan, there are allegedly some complaints coming from the employees of the Sandiganbayan. Now, can you describe your leadership style?
Well, my leadership style, Your Honor, is that just like Justice de la Cruz, I lead by example. When I demand that that the officials and employees go to court promptly, I should do it myself. And when I demand, or when I demand that faithfulness in the discharge of the duties and functions of everybody, I also impose that upon myself and do it.
Alright, is this the reason why you move or steer people in the direction you wish? How about how to gain their support or respect?
Your Honors, I have been trying to do my best to reach out to those who, to everybody, Your Honor, so that we can all move forward toward the attainment of our goal and objective in the court, Your Honors.
And what changes have you made in working with others to be more effective at work?
Well, I do some dialogue, Your Honor, actually, personally with some of my colleagues.
All right, Justice QUIROZ, what is your reputation in the office?
My reputation, well, nobody have informed me about it, but what I'm trying to show to them as much as possible is to be an upright judge, and to be a good example to them of what is supposed to be a justice should be, Your Honor.
How would your colleagues and subordinates describe you, both positive and negative?
Well, we cannot please everybody precisely, Your Honor. There will be a negative and positive.
What are your priorities in life?
Well, at this time, my priorities is first in my career that I be blessed by God to get the position that I'm applying for. Second, that my family be always in good health, okay, and to have harmony, especially my youngest son right now, hopefully to graduate from his school. Those my priorities as well, of course, to have peace inside our house.
And how do you manage in case of conflict?
With my wife, conflict with whom, Your Honor?
Why mention your wife?
No, conflict with my colleagues or what? I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Because the question seems to be hanging. The word is conflict.
Just to skip that question lang ano. Ito skip. Alright, what skill would you like to improve and what is your plan for doing so?
Well,
Let's continue.
I
Don't
still,
ever mention your wife. What's the name of your wife?
well, anyway, Your Honor, skill. At this time, I would like to be more skillful insofar as to determine the art, how to speed up the disposition of case and to help the prosecution and the defense. What are the necessary evidence for their cause that may only be presented rather than presenting a shotgun evidence that will unnecessarily delay the outcome of the case. One. Number two, of course, how to attain my expertise as much as possible and knowledge about the law, the everyday changing of the law. Those are matters, Your Honor, insofar as my career is concerned. But I'm very much engrossed with how to control and to maintain a good proceedings during open court trial, as well up to the promulgation of judgment, Your Honor.
Alright, Justice De La Cruz,
Yes, Your Honor.
what would you do differently if you knew no one would judge you?
Well, I always believe that even if no one sees me, God is always there. That's why I always see to it that what I do is always right, Your Honor.
Could you briefly explain something to me that is complicated but you know well?
Something that is complicated, but I know well. I know Your Honor, well or when? Well. Well, I have not come across about that complicated matter, Your Honor, because when it comes to our jobs, if the case is complicated, we see to it to simplify the matter, Your Honor.
And what have you done professionally that is not an experience you would want to repeat?
I cannot remember one experience that I would not want to repeat, Your Honor. I could not remember an experience that I regret.
Not even your wedding?
No, of course not,
Of
Your
course
Honor.
not, sir.
I'm happy with my family.
Right, excuse me. But Justice Ampi, what one skill makes you the most qualified for judgeship in the Supreme Court?
Your Honor, could you please repeat the question?
Right. What one skill makes you the most qualified for judgeship in the Supreme Court?
Without meaning to be overconfident and boisterous about it, I think my experience in the office of the Solicitor General for almost 31 years, where I was rigidly trained, as I have said earlier, by some of the best legal minds of the country, Your Honors.
All right, Justice De La Cruz, same question.
Well, Your Honor, I mentioned earlier that my records are open to the public as regards my stint with the Sandiganbayan for 16 years. Almost always, our division has consistently been the one to dispose the highest number of cases. And probably God loves me because my division members are competent and they are also dependable, Your Honor. My past members were Justice Rudy Ponferrada and Justice Rafael Lagos, then followed by Justice Reynaldo Cruz and Justice Rafael Lagos. Then presently, my members are Justices Geraldine Ekong and Edgardo Caldona, who are also both very dependable in our handling of the cases, Your Honor.
Justice QUIROZ, same question. That you may outdo your colleagues now?
Outdo. Well, it's so hard for me to describe because should I be comparing myself to the other chairperson just like my colleagues here, it's too hard for me. But in my division, we are, though I'm the chairperson, but we treat each other just like one. We try to be united so as we could come up and deliberate something, so as we could render the best decision that we could render. But pardon me, Your Honors, I do not really compete myself with them. Because the question will call for a competition, but within our division, pardon me, I don't compete. With regards to my other co-chairperson, likewise, I do not compete with them, Your Honor.
Yeah, there was a tweet question, and I asked this morning to the applicants. Something about the retirement of Justice Bersamin, which will be on October 19, 2019. Among the applicants vying for the Chief Justice post are Justices Diosdado Peralta, Stella Perlas Bernabe, Andres Reyes, and Jose Reyes Jr. And the question is, who do you think is the most deserving of the position? Among the applicants this morning opted not to answer a question. Now, the present applicants here have any temerity or the guile to answer such question? Justice Ampi?
Your Honors, I will not choose anyone among them because as it is, everyone is qualified. In fact, everyone possesses the minimum requirement for appointment as Chief Justice. At the end of the day, I guess it will be up to the President to choose who he thinks is the most qualified among the four. And I'm sure he will choose the best, consistent with his repeated declaration that he has only in mind the best interests of this country.
Yes, Justice De La Cruz.
Well, I think all the candidates are deserving of the position of the Chief Justice, Your Honor. And I do not want to venture to say who is more deserving than the others, Your Honor.
Justice QUIROZ.
Your Honor, I am afraid that I still need their votes, Your Honor. I'll be honest. So, no comment. I'm practical, Your Honor.
So I trusted the question this morning, even last Friday, that among the applicants, All right, Justice Sampi, who do you look up to in the Supreme Court, past and present? And why?
Justice Antonio Carpio. I admire him, Your Honors, because actually I had the opportunity to work with him rather, when he was the Chief Presidential Legal Counsel, and we worked on certain cases, and I observed his competence, utmost competence, and in his, regarding his writing style, it's easy to understand. And of course, without meaning to patronize the current member of the JBC, the Honorable Justice Noel Tingham, I read his ponencia in the Co-Waranto case, and I was really impressed by the way he presented the facts there, and the way he approached each issue, and the way the argument, the disposition of the court was presented, Your Honors.
And who is the worst, or more or less, you dislike a justice in the Supreme Court, past, present?
I do not have anyone in mind, Your Honors. I only have the respect for all the members of the Supreme Court, past and present.
Justice de la Cruz?
Well, I have very high respect for former Chief Justice Reynato Puno, Your Honor, because he is also a Bible-believing justice. And when I know that he is teaching Sunday school during Sundays, teaching children about the Bible. Also, the former Chief Justice Teresita Leonardo de
Carpio?
De Castro. sorry. Because I've worked with her when she was with the Sandiganbayan, and I know that she has a solid integrity. And also, of course, Chief Justice, the prolific Chief Justice, former Chief Justice, CJ Panganiban, Your Honor.
Justice Art Panganiban.
Is Artemio Panganiban, Your Honor.
Yes, Justice QUIROZ, have in mind who is your role model in the Supreme Court?
I'll be very brief, Your Honor, insofar as how to be, to maintain that highest degree of reputation. I go with Justice Carpio. With regards to the writing skill, I go with CJ Ramon Aquino, Your Honor.
At Justice Ampi, how are decisions reached in the Supreme Court?
Your Honors, under the Constitution, the decisions of the Supreme Court are reached in consultation with the members of the court. Then only after such consultation is made should a case be referred to a justice for the writing of the opinion of the court.
All right, Justice de la Cruz, do you still believe that magistrate should be abreast with the recent legal development?
Yes, Your Honor. Being a lawyer and being a judge is a lifetime requires a lifetime of study, Your Honor, to keep abreast of legal developments.
Right, what does the Supreme Court have to say with regard to pre-approved credit cards?
Pre-approved credit cards.
Are they still prevalent nowadays? In the case of people versus spouses, SARDA, GR number 239092, June 2019, penned by Justice Gesmundo. Are you aware of it?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I was not able to read that case.
Justice QUIROZ, what can you say about this case? Have you come
I
across it?
I don't even know the issue over there, Your Honor, with that case.
And what recent case do you know? Can we discuss this people versus Romilim?
Is it about the penalty, Your Honor? Lien.
About the links in the chain of custody,
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
what are to be established?
Well, first of all, the PIDEA who had that is the chain of custody. The PIDEA, upon seizure of the confiscated item or the contraband, must have an inventory. After the inventory, there must be a people present over there are the accused or his counsel, the arresting officer, an elected official, a representative from the DOJ, to have a picture with them and properly to have the identification and inventory, and then the handling of the exhibits, Your Honor. And in case that there could be insufficiency of handling or the chain of these handling of these drugs, the prosecutor must not immediately file it in court, but instead they will conduct a preliminary investigation so as to establish sufficient prima facie evidence to stand trial in court, Your Honor. That is about that case.
Justice Ampi, about the case of people versus Amarela and Ratio. Are you aware of this case?
May I ask what is the issue there?
At concerns about the acquittal of two accused for rape who were convicted by the Regional Trial Court and the Court of Appeals because of inconsistencies in the testimony of the victim, the lone witness for the prosecution. Was there a purported abandonment of the Maria Clara doctrine? Are you aware of this case?
I'm not aware of that case, Your Honor.
Yes, Justice De La Cruz.
Yes, Your Honor, it was penned by our former colleague, Justice Samuel Martirez, now the Ombudsman. Because of the inconsistency in the statement of the lone witness, Your Honor, well, the case, the conviction was reversed, Your Honor.
All right, that was my last question. Thank you and good luck again.
Thank you very much, Judge Elihu. I will address my first question to Justice De La Cruz. Did I hear you correctly that you describe apostille convention as an executive agreement?
Yes, Your Honor, which does not need the concurrence of the Senate.
If 3 justices participated, do you call that an executive agreement?
Well, I understand that they accompanied a certain executive officer, Your Honor.
Justice CABOTAJE-TANG, PJ.
Yes, Your Honors, I think,
You think also, you're not sure?
I'm not sure, Your Honors, I must confess that. But I believe that there was, maybe the FA secretary was there and was simply accompanied by some members of the Supreme Court, and that the presence of the three justices did not thereby convert that executive agreement into some other kind of agreement brought about simply on account of the presence of the three justices, Your Honors.
Justice QUIROZ, what is the interest of the representatives of the judiciary in the Apostille Convention?
Mere presence, it will give credibility to the agreement, Your Honor.
If they did not accompany the Philippine delegation,
Yes, Your Honor,
there will
please.
be no credibility.
There will be two, but Your Honor, because there's such thing as other agreement, or even there are instances where the agreement is not even signed or unsigned, and yet the effect is binding among.
That was my question this morning, but I will not ask you that.
Okay.
The justices were there because, well, with respect to the authentication of documents, the rules of court, the rules of evidence. Anyway, Justice Tiham is competent on that. Justice QUIROZ, what is the crime of economic abuse?
Economic abuse is it is just when an act which would surely will affect the, just like rice cartel, something that would surely affect the economic territory. For example, it could be the entire nationwide, or it could be locally in one province or in one region, Your Honor.
CRUZ of economic abuse.
I'm not sure about it, but
You have no case in the Sandiganbayan? None?
the first time I heard about it, Your Honor. But I think if the abuse will affect the economy of the country, it may be considered as economic abuse, Your Honor.
PJ Ampitang, you attend the Women's Convention. What is this crime of economic abuse?
This is one of the crimes that is punished under the law against violence against women and their children. I think the VAUSI law, Your Honors, where the one, either the spouse or a partner who is financially capable to support the other partner but refuses to extend support to either his children, Your Honors.
Should the complainant first file a petition for support? For support under family code also.
Well, to my recollection, Your Honors, the entitlement to support is a matter of law. And then
I
therefore,
agree with that.
there is no need for the one who is entitled to support to go to court to enforce it.
Immediately file a crime against the one who's not giving support.
I don't believe so, Your Honors. There must first be a demand, and the unjustified refusal to extend that support will now give rise to a cause of action for the filing of a case for economic abuse.
QUIROZ,
Yes, Your Honor.
PJ Tang is correct.
With
It
regards,
is with respect to the crime of economic abuse, non-support. Now, suppose it is the man who it's the woman who refuses to support her husband who has no means of support or income. Is that violative of the law?
well, should I refer it to Bausi law? No, Your Honor, because the Bausi is about women and children.
Is that not a violation of the Equal Protection Clause? Discriminatory against men because only women and the children can complain. Men cannot.
Your Honor, because of its uniqueness, I don't, at this time, it is still falling more on the exception because they must be equally situated. Just like, Your Honor, what perhaps the Article 3, Section 1, that equality is just like using the restroom in the coffee shop. They have only one restroom, one for the men, one for the women. And that's it, Your Honor. So, in this regard, I do not still subscribe for applying equality of rights. None yet, Your Honor.
You agree that there is a valid distinction? of the
Should there be a valid distinction in the
classification?
classification, Your Honor, and they are being treated by the law equally, then there's nothing been violated. But in this case, we are relying on seems to be the Bausi law, or what they call the economic, because that law does not mention of a man. It's only for the woman, especially the support. It always perhaps presupposes that the wife, woman may only have that entitlement, not the male man.
So there is a valid classification. You agree? Have you heard
Yes.
of the decision on that?
Yes,
You are aware?
a decision regarding valid distinction between the two.
No, there was a man who questioned the constitutionality of that provision. Why only the women or their children can file,
Oh.
not the men?
Should we? Should
Have
we?
you heard of that?
I think it's a little because it's a foreign case, but
No, it's a Philippine case.
but I'm not aware of that.
Are you aware? Okay.
Yes, but
Just
I'm not aware of the case, but I think it is based on substantial distinction between a man and a woman, between women and men, and
with respect to support.
with respect to support. And in fact, the law is entitled Anti-Violence Against Women and Children, Your Honor, not against men, Your Honor.
It's easy for PJ. What is your view?
Well, the case adverted to, actually, Your Honors, is the Drilon case, I think, where the issue of the constitutionality of this particular provision was questioned before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court declared that such a provision is constitutional.
Okay.
Yes.
Justice QUIROZ, in determining whether there is a substantial classification, what are the three tests of judicial scrutiny? Three tests of judicial scrutiny.
whether it is the factual, Your Honor, and then factual, the factual, the situation, well, factual, the issue, Your Honor, and the applicable law.
Justice de la Cruz.
Well, I think there should be substantial classification. The classification must be germane to the issue. And the third one is equal application of those
I'm
within.
asking the test, the
Test.
three tests of judicial scrutiny.
I'm sorry, it escaped my mind, Your Honor.
PJ Tang.
Well, these three tests on the Equal Protection Clause, Your Honors.
Yes. Oh,
Yes, there are three.
You
The
came
first-
from the OSG. You can easily answer this.
The first test, Your Honors, is actually the rational basis test,
Yes.
the intermediate scrutiny test, and the strict scrutiny test.
Justice Quiroz, you remember them?
Yeah, but no,
Yes,
that was long time ago, Your Honor, from the OSG when I was there.
When does intermediate scrutiny apply? Yes, yes.
Well, the intermediate.
Because I think I asked you that before.
No,
No,
not
no,
yet.
no.
No, this, you asked me about the police power, Your Honor, and I was not able to get it. It's about the equality between the senior citizen.
For now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. So, you have no idea about the immediate scrutiny test? No?
Well, I don't want to take a wild guess because I'm quite tired already.
How about Justice de la Cruz? You're not aware?
I'm not aware about that, Your Honor.
We go to the basics. Just what is estoppel in pais?
Yeah, well, to me, estoppel is mean.
Not in general. In pais only. Not estoppel in general. Estoppel in pais.
In Paris. Impair, you mean? Well, Stoppel to me, but Paris.
Not in general. In pais.
Your Honor, pass muna.
Pas muna. Oo. Justice de la Cruz?
I don't remember, Your Honor, that particular doctrine in civil law, estoppel in pais.
Justice A. Ampitang?
Well, my recollection of estoppel in pais, Your Honors, is that when a person knows of certain facts and circumstances and on the basis of those facts, he was in a position to do something to assert a right, then he will be deemed to be in estoppel in pais, Your Honors.
How do you distinguish it with equitable estoppel?
Well, or the so-called estoppel by laches, Your Honor. This is the failure of a person.
Equitable estoppel.
Equitable estoppel, Your Honor.
Yes, yes. You're not, you do not.
I know estoppel by
They are the
laches.
same.
They are the same?
Estoppel in pais and equitable estoppel are the same. One
Are
and the
the
same.
same. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Now you mentioned the estoppel by laches.
Yes, Your Honor.
Justice de la Cruz, you remember what?
Yes, Your Honor, by
in what
laches.
case?
If a person sleeps on his right too long,
Yes.
he should not be allowed to assert that right later, Your Honor.
Yes. What was that case?
I'm not sure about the case, but I know the principle, Your Honor.
Both Justice Quiroz?
I know one case wherein the Supreme Court rendered a decision in the property of Coscolluela along Quezon Boulevard, wherein the Supreme Court directly told the rightful owner, the Coscolluela, that since you have slept on your rights and the situation now is no more reversible, so in view of your sleeping of your rights, then they are declared to be in laches, and therefore the owner now will maintain its ownership.
What is the seminal case, Stoppel by Latches? We took the bar in 1971, 72, and it was already there in the books. What was that seminal case? Seminal case.
No, I have not encountered that.
No? Oh, I think PJ Tang can answer it.
I don't recall it anymore, Your Honors.
Justice De La Cruz.
Same with me, Your Honor. I cannot recall it.
You forgot Tiham versus Tibong Hanoy? Or he
No,
will not
Tiham
vote
versus-
for you.
Go.
I should have given you more tips. You forgot about that, or now you remember? Oh, you remember? Or what do you remember about that?
Versus Sibong Hanoy. I think I think that involved a case where the court did not have jurisdiction over a case that was filed before it. And it was only at the level of the Supreme Court where the party questioned the jurisdiction of the court which tried the case. That's my vague recollection of the case. And
She was jurisdiction. It was taken against the one who invoked lack of jurisdiction
Yes, Your Honor.
belatedly.
yes, Your Honor. Because
Okay. You remember Justice Quiroz? Tiham versus Sibong Hanoy? No? Justice De La Cruz.
Yes, Your Honor. Question of jurisdiction must be raised at the earliest possible opportunity, and if it will be raised for the first time on appeal before the Supreme Court, it will mean to nothing, Your Honor.
Justice Quiroz, what is the rule on deficiency after judicial foreclosure of mortgage?
What is the
The rule on deficiency after judicial foreclosure of mortgage.
so after the property be sold through an option, so the deficiency will be taken from the amount or from the proceeds of the sale or foreclosure, Your Honor.
How about if it was sold and the obligation was not satisfied?
Then, depending on the arrangement of their mortgage, but normally the bank, in case of insufficiency and despite the public auction, they could still run after to the previous owner, Your Honor.
You run against the mortgagor.
Yes, Your Honor.
What is the action to be taken?
Sum of money, Your Honor.
Separate sum of money.
Yes, Your Honor.
Justice De La Cruz.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not sure about the course of action to be taken, but definitely the creditor will be allowed to recover the deficiency.
But the procedure, what is the procedure?
Well, it may be raised in the same case where judicial foreclosure proceedings were had, Your Honor, I think.
Okay, PJ Tang, do you agree with Justice De La Cruz or Justice QUIROZ?
I agree with the answer of Justice Quirós, Your Honors. I think the creditor has to file a separate action to enforce the remaining amount of that is owing him from the debtor, Your Honors.
Indent action.
Yes, Your Honors.
Can Justice De La Cruz,
Yes, Your Honor.
you answered that can be pursued in the same case.
Yes, Your Honor.
There is a decision on that. What is the condition?
I'm not sure, Your Honor.
Well, in PCI leasing and versus DAIS, the claim should at least be included in the pre-trial BIP, so it can be included or covered by the same proceedings or resolved in the same proceedings. Justice Quirós, what is the rule in case of violation of the SALN? This is within your jurisdiction.
Yeah. So the rule, failure on the part of the government employee or official to file a SALN will be liable. So a newly hired or appointed employee must file within 30 days his SALN, as well as upon termination or upon retirement, he must likewise file a SALN, and annually must be within or until April 30, Your Honor.
And the government should file it within what period?
Are you asking the prescriptive period, Your Honor? 8 years, Your Honor.
What is
Well, the 8 years. That's our reckoning in the Sandiganbayan, Your Honor.
But what is your basis? Was it the SALN law or what?
I think it's the revised penal code insofar as the penalty is concerned.
De La Cruz?
I think it is a special law act. I think Act 3326, Your Honor, providing that sorry.
Well, it's a
With
special
whom do you agree?
with Justice De La Cruz, Your Honors, because there is a special law. It's the SALN law does not prescribe the period within the period of prescription. So it will be it is governed by the special law on prescription of special penal statutes.
Those were my last questions. Thank you very much. Your
Thank you,
Excellency.
Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honors.
Nervyos pa kasi.
Permission to approach the members of the JBC, Your Honors, to shake your hands.
Permission through our PJR, permission to shake hands daw kami sa inyo mga professor. Ay, mga.
Thank you, Your Honors. Your Honors, that concludes the public interview for today.
Was it granted the